We've already talked about three, which are granting application access, global permissions, like the ability to administer Jira, share objects like filters and dashboards, and make bulk changes, and we covered how memberships in project roles and groups grant abilities. The other permission types are project level, issue level, and workflow level. Let's look at each and how their schemes work. Each project has its own permission settings for actions like creating, editing, assigning, and closing issues. Use these settings to allow users to assign issues, but restrict who they can be assigned to, allow read-only access, or deny access to an entire project. You can do that and much more. Each project's permissions are controlled by a permission scheme. In the example, the Administer project's permission is granted to project admins and third-party Atlassian apps. The Browse project's permission is granted to any logged-in user and also third-party apps. There are over 30 different abilities to set in a permission scheme. While we're talking about schemes, we also need to talk about their relationship to projects. We'll start slow and build up to a more complex example. Now, if you find this stuff confusing, you're not alone. It took me a long time to understand the mapping of schemes to projects, but don't worry, it will make more sense as you gain more admin experience. Alright, let's discuss how a permission scheme maps to a Jira project. Jira comes with a scheme named Default Permission Scheme. Each Jira project has only one permission scheme, but the same scheme can be shared by multiple projects. In this example, one scheme is powering the sales, legal, and dev projects. Therefore, all projects have the same permission settings. Here's an example of this model. Let's say the scheme restricts the delete issue permission to users in the administrator's role. That means the restriction applies to the different admins in all three projects. Chris can delete issues in the sales project and the legal project, but not in the dev project. If you use roles and groups, only one permission scheme is needed to accomplish this. If you have software projects, you'll see another scheme named Default Software Scheme. Atlassian assumes your dev teams need different abilities than your business teams. If this is true, keep the software scheme, and if not, just remove it. In this example, the sales and legal projects use one scheme and the dev project uses another. So let's say you want to restrict issue deletion in the sales and legal projects, but allow it in the dev project. This is accomplished by using two different schemes. And finally, there's a scheme named Jira Service Desk Permission Screen for your service desk and service management projects. It's okay if you have just one permission scheme or a few, but you certainly don't need one scheme per project. Too many schemes are a maintenance problem. As I mentioned, there are over 30 different abilities to set in a permission scheme. For Jira Service Management, there's an additional permission called Service Project Agent or Service Desk Agent. This permission allows users to interact with portal customers and access support-specific features in Jira software. There are a few additional permissions for managing sprints and viewing development information like commits and build information. Alright, back to our permission discussion. In addition to securing actions in a project, you can also secure individual project issues with issue security schemes. In the screenshot, there are two security levels, confidential and sensitive. We can use these levels to allow team members to see most issues and allow leadership to see all issues. Each level of security contains different project roles, groups, custom field numbers, and more. The sensitive level is set as the default. Here are some tips. It's safer to automatically restrict access to all issues and grant access to others with additional levels. Otherwise, you're giving access to all and hoping that users remember to restrict the most sensitive issues. It's really easy to forget to do this. Data is often inadvertently exposed in notification messages and reports. This strategy is sometimes called the least privilege principle. The user is given the minimum level of access that's needed to do their work. My other tip is if you want the user who created the issue to participate during the issue's lifecycle, don't forget to add the reporter to the applicable security level. Unlike other schemes, issue security schemes are not automatically created. If you need one, you must manually create it, add levels, add users and groups to the levels, and associate it with the project. Keep in mind, many issue security schemes and levels can impact performance. Projects are not required to have an issue security scheme. In this example, the legal project has one, but the other projects don't, and that's a common use case. Not all organizations need issue security, And if they do, probably only a couple projects contain sensitive data. Don't create issue security schemes if you don't need them, and don't create more than you actually need. There's one more permission to know about in the workflows area. Let's say you want to restrict the approval ability, like in this example. Simply add a condition to hide the transition from regular users. In the screenshot, I've restricted the past transition in the awaiting approval status to the users in the administrator's role. Now, only project admins can transition issues through to the status. If a user can't see a transition, be sure to check the workflow for embedded restrictions. The workflow scheme relationship is more complex than the others we've covered. Each project has one workflow scheme, but it's possible to have multiple workflows in the scheme. The test project we created earlier has the following default issue types: bug, story, epic, task, and subtask. One workflow scheme with one workflow was automatically created for us. The simplest setup is when every issue type uses the same workflow. Here's a common example for a development team that's a little more complex. The workflow scheme has two workflows. One is for bugs and stories, and the other is for epics, tasks, and subtasks. Bugs and stories often have an additional workflow step, like approval or verification or deployment, so this model allows some issues to have extra steps, and the others to use a shorter workflow. Alright, let's compare the two examples. The test project uses a workflow scheme with one workflow. The dev project uses a workflow scheme with two workflows. As you can see, schemes are very powerful, but they can also easily become unmanageable. You probably don't need a workflow for each issue type, and you definitely don't need a different workflow for each issue type in each project. Keep your settings simple, especially in the beginning. There are a lot of permission types, schemes, and places to look when users report access problems. Luckily, there's a feature to help troubleshoot permissions. It's called the permission helper. It uncovers why a user can or can't interact with an issue. For example, a user might not be in a needed group or project role. Try using this tool to start a permission investigation. There are a few ways to get to it. First, go to the system page in the admin area and click the permission helper link in the left nav as shown. Next, access the permission helper from a permission scheme. Go to the permission schemes page in the admin area. Open any scheme and look for the permission helper button on the top right. In Server and Data Center, you can also access the permission helper from the admin menu in an individual issue. Next, let's look at how the permission helper solves problems. Here's a scenario. A user reports they cannot delete issue INDT40. Let's use the permission helper to find the reasons why. Enter the user's name, enter the issue ID, enter the permission to check, which is delete issues, and click the form submission button. Here are the results. The permission helper shows the user does not have the delete issues permission. Additionally, it shows that no one else has that permission either. Now, this is by design in my Jira application. As you may remember, I recommend disabling issue deletion. You can never get a deleted issue back, so it's better to simply close issues that you don't need anymore. From here, either add the user to the needed permission or teach them how to close issues instead of deleting them. Here's a tip. The permission helper won't check inside workflows or third-party app settings. You'll need to check those permission settings manually. There are multiple ways to solve problems in Jira. The best way depends on your business goals, application size, compliance requirements, and other factors. When deciding what to do, always consider the health and future of your application. Then pick the best method for your circumstance.